Welcome to Eye on the Illini Live. This is Mike Cagley, Brad Sturdy. We're doing the IlliniGuys NCAA Tournament Selection Bracket Breakdown Show. If that isn't a mouthful of title, I don't know what is. Brad, you were over there in Champaign with the team when they found out about this. I have to be honest with you. I'm not saying Illinois is going to win one game, but I think they're in as good a position to win two games as you could ask for based on having NCAA capable teams in the tournament.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people are like, oh, it's a tough draw. Okay. You're not getting you're a 6 seed, you're getting an 11 seed. You're getting a top 50 team, right? So you're getting a team got an at-large bid. So you're not going to get somebody who just sucks. I don't know what you're looking for. Some of these people are like, oh, what a tough draw. I think the name is part of it. Some of it is, it's the name. It's Texas. It's Xavier. It's Sean Miller. And most of those same people have no idea who coaches at Texas. It's Rodney Terry for those looking, but they don't even know. But no, but I think it's as good a draw as they can get. They get a Kentucky team that's without one of their best players. This is a great draw. It's in Milwaukee. You're 3 hours from Champaign, slightly over 3 hours, 4 hours from my house, which is most important.
Did the tournament selection committee factor that in, Brad?
I think they did, and then they go to Indy. So they were like, hey, we don't want Sturdy to have to drive that far, so let's make it really easy on him. And I appreciate them for that. So it's nice of them to do that. But I think it's a good draw, and I think the Illinois coaching staff believes it's a good draw too. Not that they're going to say that, but I think they feel like they have a good chance to win two games.
No, I think that's true. And why don't we go through the bracket and give people opportunity to take a look at what we have out there and get your thoughts on it. That's kind of what they're here for. So let's start off. Brad, Auburn, number 1 seed. Take us through kind of your thoughts in this bracket. I will tell you, I thought Michigan State got about as good of a bracket as you could possibly get, especially with Iowa State announcing injury issue today. And then I thought that Michigan probably deserved maybe better than a 5. I don't know, since the tournament doesn't count, probably not. Yeah. But what are your thoughts on this bracket?
Those are games, right? They do play those Big Ten tournament games are actual games, right? So quad one games. Evidently, they don't matter. But no, I think Auburn, their half of the bracket, I think, is not an easy one. So I look at this. Obviously, you look at an Auburn team that has been the top team all year. Most people believe they've been the most consistent, best team all year, and that's why they're the overall number 1 seed. I don't disagree necessarily. They've slipped to 4th in KenPom. They're not number 1 in the net. So just go show you, I don't think anybody cared how they finished. But so anyway, let's go with that. So this is an Auburn team that draws Louisville, who I think or Creighton. Kalkbrenner can be a difference maker in the middle if she's playing. Louisville's had a really good year. They were great. And you look at their ACC record, really good. ACC's weak, I know. They get a Michigan team who was expected to maybe be a 4. They get a Texas A&M team who was one of the teams talking about being a 3. And then even your 12s and 13s I thought Yale was going to be a 12, just looking at their resume. And then also UC San Diego is a tough draw for Michigan. So this half of the bracket, I think, is really good. This is, if I'm looking at a region, just when you look at maybe an 8-team bracket here, This is really good. And this is going to be tough for Auburn to get through because you look on that other side, let's say they get to the Sweet 16, it goes as chalk, and they play either a Michigan team that just won the Big Ten tournament, or they draw a Texas A&M team who just beat them by double figures, a week ago, 10 days ago, 12 days ago, whatever it is. They lost by 11 at Texas A&M. So this is it's not an easy for the number 1 overall seed. They certainly didn't get any favors.
No, not at all. It was very Illinois-like.
You start looking at the bottom of that bracket. Now this is where it gets interesting. I think Ole Miss was probably one of the weaker 6s when I look at their whole body of work and resume. I think they're old, they're talented, obviously well coached, but it's going to be tough. Iowa State waited till after they did the announcement to let you know that their guy wasn't going to play. They're not dumb. Yeah, I'm sure that was just when they found out. You got a Marquette team who at times looked like a world beater, and Michigan State, who was the kind of class of the Big Ten this year. But I don't look at any of these teams. Do any of these teams like strike fear into your heart in this bottom half of the bracket?
I think Michigan State's going to go through that like a hot knife through butter.
I agree. I think Michigan State's got a great draw. Now, getting to that top side, whoever they play on that side, whether it's they've handled Michigan, but let's say it's Texas A&M, let's say it's Auburn, let's say it's I don't know. You start looking at that, that's tougher. That team's going to come through there and have to really grind out a win to get to the Elite Eight. Whoever comes out of that top side, but I think Michigan State's got a great opportunity. You got a weakened Iowa State team as a 3. You got a Marquette team that looked great. Obviously, they have done a good job of limiting star players, whether it's whoever is Braden Smith or whoever. And Cam Jones is going to be a marked man when they play Michigan State. So this is a fun, I think for Michigan State, this is an opportunity for Tom Izzo to make his run. And then you have to beat somebody from the top bracket. But at the same time, that means you have to win one game. And any of these games are 70-30, 60-40. You always have a shot.
Yeah, totally agree. Do you have a favorite when you look at that bracket? Obviously, we'll have time that we'll talk about who we think's the best, et cetera. But do you have a team that you think is the odds-on favorite in your eyes?
On that bracket?
Yep.
Those 16, I think it's Auburn.
Okay.
I do. I think it's gonna be hard. I think Auburn is I think they're better than everybody else, but that doesn't mean you're gonna make it, right? Because you still have to get on a hot streak and you got to win 4 in a row. But it's going to be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, I just look at Michigan State, expected to be 5th in the Big Ten this year. Clearly won the title, sailed very Purdue from last year to that Big Ten title, and they've been constantly underestimated by everybody throughout the year. I'm not. We'll find out, but I'm not so certain that Auburn can get by them. But certainly, Tom Izzo is a coaching legend. And I think there is some degree of calls that you get when you're a legend because you've been doing it for a long time.
No question. I agree. Speaking of it, look at the other bracket. You got some legends there, right?
Well, yeah, I was going to go over to that bracket. Yeah.
There's a legend in his own mind in the top, Danny Hurley. But they did Florida also. You get potentially you get either the defending national champions or you get Oklahoma. Porter Moser, I'm a big fan of. I think Hurley's a great coach. I don't like Danny Hurley. I think he's a great basketball coach.
Yes.
If I'm Florida, I do not love seeing UConn as the 8 seed there. I think that's a tough draw too. And then I think Memphis is a little bit overseeded, especially without, again, missing a key player going into this. They get a 5. I like Maryland. I like Maryland to come through this. And I think that you get a Florida-Maryland game, that'd be fun. I think that could be a really fun game.
Great to watch, wouldn't it?
Yep, I agree. Now, Maryland has it, and I like Maryland. I think Maryland's good. I think that I talked to multiple college coaches after the Illinois game, not from Illinois, from others or Maryland for that matter. And they were like, they are Final Four good. Like, they're really good. And people are like, you were there. I had a couple coaches text me and say, you were there. Are they really that good? And I said, I tell you what, they were today. They're a team that has a lot of different ways they can beat you. I think Derek Queen is up. He'll bring it in the NCAA tournament. I think he's a dynamic player. I think he's one of the most dominant freshmen in the country. I picked him as freshman of the year in the country outside of Cooper Flagg. Behind Cooper Flagg, I picked one of the best ones. Yeah, I think Maryland, I think you could see a Maryland-Florida matchup there. I like that. I tell you what, Memphis, they got the 5 seed, but they play perhaps Colorado State might be the hottest team in the country. That's a tough draw too. So as we go to the bottom, you got, now this is where you get the guys another group of guys who've won a bunch. You have one pod that has Bill Self and his 2 national titles, John Calipari and his national title, and Rick Pitino and his national titles. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
That's a pretty good group. I feel bad for the guy from Omaha because nobody even knows who the coach at Omaha is now. Like everybody's
probably won't after that first round game either.
What's an Omaha? People are like, "What is an Omaha?" Is that what Peyton Manning says?
That's
what Peyton Manning says.
Yeah, Omaha, yeah, or
Omaha.
Mutual of Omaha.
Yeah,
with Marlon Perkins and then Jim, who had to get down and go wrestle every animal alive while Marlon commented on it.
Crutchfield is the coach at Nebraska Omaha. 9-23, 15-18 this year. They're 22-12, go 13-3. They're in the Summit. Really good year for them. Congrats on getting there. Your reward is you're going to get a beat down by about 20 points. So maybe.
What do we think of the Missouri Drake game? Because you got Dennis Gates and Drake is definitely elevated. Is there a chance of an upset there?
No question. And here's the thing: if that game becomes a half-court grinded out game, Drake's going to win. If Missouri can get it to be up tempo, they like to push it a little bit, get up and go. They like to get out and run a little bit more, and they're going to do some things. But I think Missouri, when you look at it, they are they've had a really good season. Dennis Gates did a great job. But one of the things that they have struggled with is when they can get offensive rebounds, they get those second chance points. But they've also struggled. They've lost when teams attack the offensive glass. So, in fact, in all but one of their losses, teams are grabbing over 30% of their misses. Teams like Vanderbilt, teams like Illinois, Tennessee, Texas, Memphis, Florida dominated the glass against them and kept getting second chance points. And Texas A&M as well, Oklahoma even, and scored a lot of points. This is a Drake team that loves to rebound the basketball. Now, does that rebounding, that dominant offensive rebound, translate against a high major opponent like Missouri, who's fifth in offensive efficiency, in large part because of one of their things they do is that they're a good offensive rebounding team. They get to the line, all those things. Drake, on the other hand, is the exact opposite. So they are going to grind it. They're going to also get to the line a lot. So they're going to attack the offensive glass. Drake also forces a ton of turnovers. 22% of possessions are turnovers. Can Missouri handle that kind of the pressure they put on? But they don't put full court pressure. They have a really good idea of how to attack and get that half court pressure. Now, so yeah, I think this is a really fun matchup, and I think it's contrasting styles.
Well, this bracket has really, I think, of my impression, this has the most intriguing games because UConn and Oklahoma. So we get to see Jeremiah Fears. You get to see Dan Hurley. That'll be fun. Missouri Drake looks fun. And then you have Kansas with Bill Self and Arkansas with John Calipari. Those are three matchups that have a lot of storylines. And
Memphis, Colorado State is a great. Colorado State's the hottest team in the country.
Exactly.
This is a great side. And then you got the guys like St. John's in Florida going, we don't have any idea who we're going to play coming out of these games. These other games are kind of 50-50 games. It should be a blast. This region, the West, and then there's nobody. Okay, I look at this, and also this is a West Coast, and I know the opening rounds aren't there, but when they do get to the West, how about let's say we get there with chalk. The West is St. John's, and let's say it's Missouri, Maryland, and Florida in the West.
I know.
What is going on here? Even if it's Texas Tech, that's not really the West, right? And I think that's in LA, right? So this is just what a fun, that would be a blast to see that kind of be
how the West was won.
How the West was won by the teams that are 4 hours away
in the East.
Yeah.
So let's go to the other two brackets.
Okay.
And of course, the Midwest. This one has some affection for Illini fans.
Yeah.
Houston up on top there, Tennessee, the 2 seed, Kentucky, the 3 seed. I can see that. Purdue, a 4 seed. Is this a hang? Did the committee think Zach Edey's still on the team?
We were talking about this. You and I were talking about this on the phone earlier.
Yeah.
This is an example. I feel like sometimes teams with the reputation get a little higher seeding. And also it also shows the Big Ten tournament was virtually irrelevant.
Yes,
Purdue got beat by 4 million by Michigan. Maybe it was 20, but regardless, 18 or 20. And then they get seated behind him. It would have been really easy to flip and make Michigan a 4, Purdue a 5, and change the venue, whatever you do. But so this is really interesting to me that this happened but I think Purdue gets a high point team. Alan Huss has done a great job there bringing that out, but I don't think they can beat Purdue. But I think Purdue a little bit overseeded here based on what I've seen. On the other hand, I think Clemson is a team that could probably beat Purdue in the second round, but what a great matchup that would be. And then here's the other sneaky one. By the way, SIU Edwardsville, congrats on getting there. Hopefully you can score 20 against this Houston defense. Man, it's hard. They guard so well. Man, they get after it. But yeah, so that's going to be a tough one. They're number 2 defensive efficiency team in the country. But anyway,
I meant Houston, not SIU Edwardsville.
Yeah, I meant Houston. Yes, poor SIU Edwardsville. But how about this Gonzaga team? So Gonzaga is. You remember when Illinois had to play Loyola in the second round as a 1 seed?
Yes.
And everybody's they're Loyola. They're like an 8. They're just Loyola. They were 8th on KenPom. Gonzaga is 9th on KenPom right now. The number 9 offensive rating, number 29 defensive rating, and yes, that includes schedule strength. So they are 341st in luck. Gonzaga is based on KenPom, based on how it works out. And they've got some. Their losses are to West Virginia, Kentucky, Connecticut, UCLA. They've lost to some St. Mary's a couple times, and of course they beat St. Mary's to win the West Coast Conference tournament. So Gonzaga is a tough second round matchup because they're a team that's been to the Sweet 16 like 400 years in a row or something like that. So what is it? Is it 8 years in a row? 1, 2, 3. No, maybe not that many. I guess they only made the second round though. 4, 5 out of the last 6 tournaments they've been in the Sweet 16. 6, 7 Sweet 16s in the last 9 years or something like that. And they were a 1 seed when COVID happened. So this is a team that is really consistently been there year in and year out. They're good again this year. They're just not quite at that level. But man, as an 8 seed, and I know that they don't have maybe the wins, that you think they need to get higher. But I'm telling you, this team is quality. They are a quality team. They have size. They have some power. They have the ability. They have a guard and Nembhard who can go. They've got some shooters, but they've got the interior guys, whether it's Braden Huff or Graham Ike. They've got some guys who can play inside. Ben Gregg, a lot of guys who fit this mold. This is a team that can really match up well with about anybody. And they are, Houston, they're one of the few teams that won't be intimidated to play Houston. So this is a great second round. How about those 4 teams? If you have Clemson, Purdue, Clemson's one of the few teams to be able to compete with Duke this year, head to head. Purdue, who Matt Painter's, I think, really good. And then you have Houston and Gonzaga. That is an elite grouping there in the second round. Can't wait to see that.
I got to say, though, Purdue really makes me wonder. They lost 6 of their last 9 games, got blown out a couple times. And at one point, this team was 19-5, end up 22-11. And obviously, Matt Painter gets a boatload of respect for what he's done the last 4 or 5 years, not at all taking anything away because they've been the best team in the Big Ten, just about any metric you want to take over that time period. But man, I don't think this team deserves that. Now, we had somebody in our earlier podcast today who claimed High Point essentially has 2 starting 5s, and he thinks they're going to wear down Purdue. I thought that was interesting because I don't think I've ever heard of a 13 seed wearing down a 4 seed. But
it can happen. Matt Painter did lose as a 1 seed.
Yeah.
So it can happen for sure. I don't know. I think they'll get there. I think Purdue is a little overseeded. But this is new for High Point. That'll be interesting. Yes. The bottom half obviously has a lot more interest for Illini fans, right?
Yes.
Illinois gets the winner of Texas and Xavier. This is an intriguing deal. These 2 teams, Texas and Xavier, they're different. I'm not saying they're the same team, but they are similar in their profiles. When you look at that. On KenPom, Xavier is 43rd. Texas is 44th. Neither team is an elite offensive or defensive team. Xavier is 52nd. Texas is 37th on offense. Xavier is 44th on defense. Texas is 57th on defense. Xavier likes to play just a slight bit faster than Texas, but neither one likes to just get out and go. Neither one of them plays real slow. These are quality teams. There's no question. They're both teams that are capable of beating people. Texas has wins over Kentucky and Missouri and Texas A&M this year, and Oklahoma as well, and Mississippi State from the field, and Texas A&M again. So they've had some good things. Trey Johnson's a really good player for Texas, the freshman. They've got named Arthur Kaluma's 35 years old or something now. So they've got some old guy, Caden Shedrick, senior. Tremont Mark is also a senior. How old is Kaluma, by the way? He was born in 2002. He's not that old. He's only 23. That's not that old in today's college basketball. It seems like he's been around forever. He's played for so many teams. But yeah, so Texas is a good team. Now, the weird part about this, I think that Xavier is probably slightly favored. One, because they're in Dayton, and they're obviously Xavier's from Cincinnati. Xavier's played a lot of close games against good teams, St. John's, for example, Marquette. But this is I don't know. Neither one of these teams blow me away. Ryan Conwell, obviously, really good player for Xavier, 42% three-point shooter. This is a kid that it was at Indiana State last year from Indy. If you remember,
Yep.
He really helped Indiana State last year. He's a really good shooter of the basketball. He's a really good player. So that's tough. And Zach Fremantle, some names that you've probably heard before. They're old. But here's the other thing. You got an older team, whether it's Marcus Foster, Ryan Conwell, Zach Fremantle, Davian McKnight, etc. They're old, right? Jerome Hunter, Dante Maddox too. But they're an 11 seed, even though they were in a weak Big East, and they're still an 11 seed, and they lost They were 21-11 again in a fairly weak conference. Yeah, this is a kind of game that although you may not you may think it's tough, I think it's still a game that you should win. Now, the one thing about Xavier, they are also not a very good offensive rebounding team. I feel like if Illinois or defensive rebounding team, Illinois will get a ton of rebounds if they're playing Xavier. They will just crash the offensive glass and get a ton of second shots. We know that's key for Illinois, especially if they miss some shots. Yeah, I think Illinois got as good a draw as you can expect as a 6 playing 11, because you don't get one of these hungry 11s that will get after you like a VCU. VCU is like, we'll talk about them later. They're scary as an 11. Drake would be a little scary just because they play so slow. Just a weird style, maybe. So maybe that's tougher. But yeah, I think Illinois, this is about as good a draw as you could hope for, especially when you get to the 3 seed coming up.
Is Drake, is that a preview of what could be coming to the Big Ten?
It could be. Maybe at Indiana.
Keep hearing that rumor, right?
Yeah, the weird part about that one is Ben McCollum. Do you think Indiana fans are excited about? Let's think about this. Do you think Indiana fans are excited about the names? They heard about Brad. They got Brad Brownell instead of Brad Stevens. Or if they get Ben McCollum, who has never coached at a high major level, is that where Indiana thinks their program is? Now, I think Ben McCollum is a lot like Kurt Signetti is on the football side. Like, he's a guy who's could bring his staff, come in. They have NIL. They're going to get players. But at the same time, I think so it could be a good hire. Could also be a guy who has never worked with NIL, never coached athletes that are this type of, how do I say it, prima donnas. So it's a little different animal, right? So we'll see how that plays out. But those are the two names that you keep hearing.
And the other thing is, it's an interesting time if you listen to all the rumors. I'm not at all trying to say any of them are true. But Texas would be able to try to lure Brad Underwood. Then Illinois could try to lure Sean Miller. This is almost like they got all the rumors and said, let's throw a few of these guys together and see what we can get cooking here.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, Kentucky, fun. Let's say Illinois can defeat the Texas Xavier winner, and they play Kentucky. Now, Kentucky's a 3 seed. I think Illinois' resume compares favorably compared to Kentucky, and Kentucky's not an overly physical team. There is and I'm not saying it's going to happen because Illinois could get beat by any of these teams, but if Illinois plays their game, one could hypothesize that they walk out of this going to a Sweet 16.
Oh, there's no question. I look at this. So you know what, Kentucky, they like to get up and down. Illinois loves that. Kentucky can score, but they're worse than Illinois defensively. So we always talk about that. They force fewer, I'm not sure this is possible, that they can force fewer turnovers than Illinois, but they're close. They're really close in forcing.
So how does Kentucky
turnovers
compare to Iowa? How do they manage with bad defense but yet good shooting? How do they manage to excel in such a tough conference as the SEC?
They score at a really high level. They're actually better offensively than Iowa. But here's the other thing. One of their most efficient guys, 38% from 3, 53% from 2, guy is Jackson Robinson. He's a difference maker at 6'6". He can get a shot whenever he wants. Jackson Robinson is out. That really hurt them. He was one of their best 5 players. Now, Then you got Odigoway and Lamont Butler, obviously, who are really good players. You got some size in Andrew Carr, but again, not a crazy physical thing. Amari Williams is their most physical guy inside, but doesn't space the floor, and he's not a great free throw shooter. So it's really interesting when you look at this. They bring in Kobe Bray, who's a 44% 3-point shooter, basically a spot up guy. He's one of their guys off the bench. They probably play a few more guys than Illinois, which can be good. But at the same time, I think this is a team that Illinois can match up with. I think it's an Illinois team, a team that Illinois can compete with, and a team that Illinois can beat. I think it will literally be, when you look at the odds, it's going to be a 2-point by the odds makers one way or the other, or less, 2 or less points. On KenPom, you're talking about a game that's going to be a pick 'em. It's going to be a 1-point game, and I don't know. So if you're getting a draw, you're a 6 seed, and you're basically playing a team. The margin between the 3s and 6s. So I saw the odds, when they play the odds out, every 3 seed has a 55% chance or better of getting to the Final Four, or to getting to the Sweet 16, except Kentucky, who has a less than 50% chance of getting to the Sweet 16. That's a pretty intriguing thing, because what that tells you is the difference between Illinois and Kentucky is less than the difference between maybe the other 3s and 6s, notwithstanding Iowa State and their injury, which obviously changes them a little bit. So it's a fun thing to look at. This is also the strongest. I think we're looking at this, when you look at efficiency margins, one of the strongest groups of 6 seeds they've ever had. And the difference between the 6s and the 11s is like the second greatest difference in the history of the NCAA tournament. Now, that probably means the last time when they had the greatest it was like they had 2 of the 4 got beat. So that doesn't tell you anything, but it's just really interesting to see. We always talked about the bubble being weak this year, but man, I tell you what, these top 8 lines are pretty good. There's not as much difference, except for the 1 seeds are way ahead, and then everything else. I mean, there's a big stretch between that 8 line and below them.
Okay. So let's move on to the East, where they found the most annoying picture of Cooper Flag.
Well, we didn't talk about, how about Tennessee?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Is Tennessee, that's the other one. Illinois lost by 2 to Tennessee. You got UCLA down there, who they beat by 10 at home. I could see UCLA winning that game or losing to Utah State too. But yeah, I think Tennessee they're very good, but they struggle to score sometimes. So that's an interesting one too. It's not an unbeatable grouping for Illinois.
Totally agree. Till you get to Houston, and then I'm like, let's let somebody else knock them off.
Yeah, somebody else should beat them. Yeah, that's the one thing about Houston, though. They do have
those
stretches when they can't score, and now they guard, but they can have nights when they don't score, and then they have to win. They have to grind out wins, which whether it's tough games against Kansas or Baylor or whatever, Texas Tech, they win some close games. Arizona. Now the question becomes: you get in that close game, can you find a way to pull that game out? But yeah, so in the East, you got the ugly picture of Cooper Flag. Yes.
Seriously, they got a whole stock room of pictures. Let's take this one.
This sounds like a good one. I don't know. So you got Duke. Obviously, I think Duke's going to beat the 16 seed, but this is a really good 8-9 game.
Do they need, Brad, real quick, do they need Cooper Flag to play this first weekend?
I think they do.
Okay.
I don't think they necessarily need him, but I would not want to lose while sitting him out. But I could see him not playing that first game.
Okay.
And just give him 2 more days, because if they can't beat a 16 seed, they're too good. You saw they won the ACC tournament without him.
Right.
So they're okay, even without him. This Baylor-Mississippi State game is a really even game again. You talk about 2 teams that are in the 29th and 32nd on KenPom, just a 1-point margin. And this is a fun game. You got two teams that will, that can really score or defend. They're pretty good when it comes to offense. Both struggle a little bit on defense. So that's why I think you get a 70. We'll get up in the 70s. That's such a better game than these 55 games. You know what I mean? Like 50 to 54 or whatever. So I think it'll be fun. Be interesting to see this game. This is Big 12 against the SEC, and we'll see how this plays out. Baylor, obviously, Scott Drew is one of the few guys in college basketball who's won a national title. And you got Chris Jans, who's really a name that everybody talks about now as being one of the best coaches in college basketball.
So you go down. How is Oregon at 5 seed? What did they do that made them better than Illinois at the 6th seed, just out of curiosity? That was a question that came up quite often during the actual live selection show.
They
And
lost Illinois by 1,000. Evidently,
exactly.
that's what you need to do. You need to lose to them by 1,000. Now, Oregon had those early, the analytics don't love Oregon as much, the net or the KenPom. But you look at that, they beat Texas A&M. The win over Alabama has really carried weight for them all year long. They got a win over Maryland, win over Wisconsin. So they've beaten some high-level teams. But I don't know. I think they're a bit overrated. I think they're a team that's solid. I think they're seeded probably, honestly, I feel like they're more of an 8 seed than a 5 seed. But that's
Home
not where they
lost
were
to
seeded.
Nebraska's.
Yeah,
Home lost to Nebraska's on the road at Minnesota. Yeesh.
Yeah, no, I agree. Liberty's an up-and-coming team. I think Oregon will win this game, but this is not an easy one. But the other part about this, too, and so let's say you're the 5 here. If you're Illinois, would you rather be this could be a situation where the committee said Oregon was a 5, but they just said, you know what, we're going to make Oregon a 5 so they can play Arizona and they can play them in Seattle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they did or didn't do that, but that would make more sense to me than what than having them as a 5. That's just my opinion. They do have a lot of quad
that
one.
makes sense. Yeah. That makes
so
sense.
You have a true regional here. Bring out those teams, and you have Oregon, Arizona, and the winner gets to go to the Sweet 16 back in the East.
Yeah.
So yeah, good times. There could be some frequent flyer miles going on here for these teams, but I like Arizona's playing well. I think Tommy Lloyd's done a really good job this year of getting this team to play better down the stretch. So I like Oregon and Duke to come out of this region to play each other in the Sweet 16.
I agree with you there. And then down below, I thought Wisconsin got a decent opportunity there. Now, again, somebody claimed that Montana was primed to give Wisconsin a lot of trouble. I would certainly welcome that, but I'm not certain that I see that.
Here's a Wisconsin team that, again, if you go back a week from today, we were talking about how Wisconsin was on the way down, right? They just lost to Penn State at home to end their regular season. They're limping into the Big Ten tournament as a 5 seed after getting their butt whipped by Penn State. They're clearly not that good. Blah, 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 blah. Then you look, they lost to Michigan State. They lost to Oregon at home. And then they lose to Penn State at home, and then they go on a run and beat Northwestern, UCLA, and Michigan State in the Big Ten tournament. So it just goes to show you that you can't. This is such a game of ebb and flows right here. And Wisconsin has a good draw in that first round. I think they're going to beat Montana. Obviously, it's not going to be easy. I think they're a lot better than Montana. Montana's 157th in KenPom. Now, that second round game for Wisconsin, I don't know. BYU's a trendy pick. You start thinking about BYU and say they're a team that BYU, and I guess maybe it's a 6 seed thing, but they remind me a little bit of Illinois not necessarily in their way they play, but that they have beaten some really good teams and also got blown out by some teams. They've beaten Iowa State, they've beaten Arizona, they've beaten Kansas, Baylor, go down the list, but they just got destroyed by Houston. So I don't know. Are they that good? I don't know. They've gotten destroyed by Houston twice, beat Iowa State a couple times. So I think they're solid, but they're a high-low team. But I would say that VCU game is going to be very tough because I like VCU. VCU is an 11 seed who's probably underseeded. I think they're better than that. Analytics have them higher. They are a team that really will get after people. They will force 20 turnovers on 21% of possessions. They are one of the best field goal shooting defense teams in the country, 44.4% effective field goal percentage. They defend the 2 extremely well. VCU does. They're a really good defense, and they're going to get after you. They've got whether they got 6'10", 6'10", 6'5", 6'7", whatever, or 6'5", 6'4". They've got some size on the wing. They've got some size on the inside. They've got some older guys. This is a dangerous team. I think that Ryan Odom has a team that has a chance to win 2 games here. I'm not saying they will or won't. They can, I think, beat BYU. They're trendy. They were a trendy upset pick, both these teams. So putting these guys together, this is a team that I did not want to see Illinois playing in as a 6 seed. This was a much more dangerous 11 seed. And so this is than that. But now you get Wisconsin. Wisconsin's really good at shooting the ball. So it's going to be interesting. They had a bad shooting day against Michigan and they lost, but overall they shoot a lot of threes. They're best shooting. They have most threes in Big Ten play, most made threes. So this is I like this bracket. I think this is a really fun Wisconsin, BYU, VCU. I think it's Wisconsin, VCU in that game. And I think that's a blast. That's a really good game. On the other end, St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's an upstart. Nobody expected Vanderbilt to be this good. Obviously, they've had a good year. St. Mary's is a team that everybody loves because they've won a lot of games out on the left coast. But St. Mary's has beaten Gonzaga twice. You know what other wins St. Mary's has of note?
Gonzaga twice.
They still have beaten their third best win is Nebraska.
Wouldn't it be something if Vanderbilt could end Alabama's basketball dreams just like they did their football dreams?
That'd be really wild, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be funny. It started a rivalry finally after 120 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah, and I do think I think Vanderbilt's a good team. They're a team that could beat somebody here. But I think that I don't know. I guess maybe I'm wrong here, but I really think Randy Bennett and St. Mary's. I think they beat Vanderbilt here, and then they got to play Alabama, and this is a really interesting game. Now, here's the weird part about Vanderbilt. I know they got into the tournament and whatever. You say they're 10 and they're 7-10 game. They've lost 3 in a row. They've lost 6 of 9. They're another team. They've lost 8 of 12.
6 of 9. They should be a 4 seed like Purdue.
They're 4-8 in their last 12. They're 5-9 in their last 14. You start to wonder, like, what are we doing here? They were at one point they were 13-1, and now they're 20-12. So they were 7-11 down the stretch. Man, this is a team that, and they do have some good wins. Don't get me wrong, they have good wins, but they also have a ton of losses, and they got rewarded because the SEC is so strong. But who did Vandy play in the non-conference? Nobody. Yeah. They rewarded them for being in the SEC. They always said, we need to play competition. They played Drake in the non-conference.
But not Drake the University, Drake the rapper?
No, they lost by 11 to Drake the University. The rapper would have beat him by 20. So who knows? It's pretty wild. So I don't know. I guess they're battle tested, but I think St. Mary's has been consistently better. But we know Vanderbilt can beat some really good teams. So we'll see how that plays out. But I think Alabama comes through there and gets that round. And then I like either VCU or Wisconsin. I haven't gotten to that far, broke that down yet. But, man, Alabama's a really good offensive team. They are the best, maybe the most fun offensive team to watch play. And they score, and they're going to be fun to see what they do in the tournament if their defense can hold up when they get to a team like Wisconsin who's so efficient, or where they get to a team like who can guard them a little bit like VCU, or when they get to Duke, because that's a really tough matchup for them, because I think Duke really guards, and they're going to put the clamps on them, and I think Duke can also really score the basketball.
I think where the Big Ten teams, in my opinion, fall short, if you look at Big Ten versus SECs, I just think SEC has better guards overall.
I think they're more athletic.
Exactly.
Right? Just more athletic guys. Big Ten's got some guys.
Shots and everything.
Yeah, there's no easy way to get a shot off. There's always a contested. Every shot is contested because they have the athleticism to get there. I've always said you got to get through and you got to contest all those jump shots. That sounds great, but if you aren't athletic enough and you close out too short, they're going to go by you. You know what I mean? These guys are athletic enough to get by you offensively, and they're athletic to close out on you defensively and keep you in front. So it's really impressive, the athleticism they have in the SEC.
So we got one statement here. Indiana fans are delusional. I guess we found out that when you talk about blue bloods, North Carolina is still a blue blood because they didn't deserve to be in the tournament. And Indiana is no longer a blue blood because they didn't find a way to get them into the tournament.
Yeah, it's funny. We were talking about this. Did the Mike Woodson mid-season announcement make a difference for them? I don't know that it did. I think that they actually had Indiana has an argument to be in their head of UNC.
I agree.
They really do. West Virginia should be burning down the NCAA headquarters because they should be in there over North Carolina. You cannot give me a rationale for why West Virginia is not in the tournament. And
because the NCAA is trying to build up Iowa by getting DeVries there right away and letting him start building through the portal.
That's probably the best description I've heard so far. Not going to lie.
Delusional too.
It is, but that might be the best thing I've heard so far, that they just want to get him over there. I mean, they played West Virginia. They will have 10 quad 1 and 2 wins, 6 quad 1 wins. They played 23 games against quad 1 and 2. Okay. So on the other hand, North Carolina was 1-12 against quad 1. And they said they were 8-0 against quad 2. So they're 9-12. They still didn't have as many quad 1 and 2 wins as West Virginia. There's no argument that I can see that really makes sense here. North Carolina had what? Road neutral wins. What did they have this year? You can't
get any good wins out of the ACC if you don't beat Duke. I mean, that's just...
And they also had, I look at this, West Virginia's 9-0 against quad 3 and 4. North Carolina's 13-1 against quads 3 and 4. They lost to a quad 3 and 4. 13 of their wins are quad 3 and 4. I just don't. It didn't make any sense to put them in. It really didn't. In fact, Indiana and probably Boise State, even they were 8-7 or 8-8 against quad 1 and 2, but they had a quad 4 loss. So I'm saying, okay, a quad 4 and a quad 3 loss. That's fine. Ohio State, you know how many quad 3 and 4 losses they had? None. 8-0. But they were 9-15 against quad 1 and 2. They played 24 quad 1 and 2 games. And Ohio State could have been a team that I could have seen in over North Carolina. Yeah, I don't think they deserve to be in there. I think they should have been in there. I think it's wrong. And it's disappointing to me that the committee made that decision. But it goes to show when your AD is the chairman of the committee, you have a much better chance of making the tournament from the bubble than if they are not.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? So real quickly, the Illinois women who have played through more injuries than I think I've ever seen a team play through.
I went to one practice and I got hurt. I was just sitting there.
Exactly. Brad came out. We had to get it surgery. So basically, Illinois has they're an 8 seed going up against a 9 seed Creighton. And if they pull that out, they play number 1 seed Texas. Tough draw for Illinois. Just because, what are they down to? 6 or 7 players right now? It's just unbelievable.
They have that many? I thought they wanted me to scrimmage. That's how I got hurt. No, it's tough, man. They have battled through. Kudos to them for just getting here, making it as an 8 seed. I think that's a huge accomplishment for them to get there. And this is a great example of what Shauna Green did a great job coaching. But they've got some older guys they've been able to battle through and find a way to get there. And I'm excited for them to have a chance to hear their name called and get there. Now, the matchup with Creighton, they're very similar. Creighton's 30 on the net. Illinois 32nd. Creighton has a nice record, but Creighton is 0-6 in quad 1 games and 5-6 in quad 1 and 2. Illinois is 4-7 in quad 1 games. So Creighton hasn't won a big quad 1 game all year. So, Illinois 6-9 against quad 1 and 2 and 15-0 against quads 3 and 4. Creighton's played 21 games against quads 3 and 4. So I think this is an Illinois team that is much more battle tested than Creighton. Illinois is also 7-6 road neutral. So very impressive what they're able to do. They've been able to compete. So I like that. I think this is a matchup Illinois can win. I'm not saying they're going to win this game, but this is a game they can win, even with their depleted bench. Now the question becomes, what can they do against Texas? Now, we often say they can't compete with them. When they went on the road to UCLA and USC, guess what? They competed with both those teams. They did not win, but they competed. Now, if you throw in a Texas team that is 31-3 and a 1 seed, and you talk about a team that has pressure at home, that's tough. So you can hang around. You can hang around a little bit and just see what happens. Now, do I expect them to beat Texas? No. In fact, I think it's probably 1 and 2. We'll say 2 out of 100 times. We'll say 1 out of 100, 2 out of 100, something like that. 1 out of 100 probably is best thing. So But that one time, if it's the right time, if it's in this tournament, then you find a way, right? Yeah, they have, but I think the big key for them, they win a game, and I feel like that Shauna Green's, that's a huge, they're from 17 to 32. Remember, this program was a complete dumpster fire,
yes,
disaster, train wreck, whatever you want to call it, just 3 years ago. And now we've got an NCAA tournament bid as a play-in game, 11 seed. You've gotten a WBIT championship and now an 8 seed NCAA tournament bid. This is fantastic to see them relevant, and they have great recruits coming in. They're going to be active in the portal. Fantastic situation that we have with Illinois women's basketball.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, too, that with Brad Underwood, you got to get there every year to have a shot. Illinois gets there as a 6th seed. Probably got a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, maybe, with all the injuries and stuff. And I think that's because they've been there for a while, which is smart now. We're in year 6 of being really back to old Illinois. And I think that's starting to help the Illini as well. So, all in all, I think we're seeing a resurgence of Illinois basketball, and it looks like this could be a fun weekend. And let's hope we get one of the 2 teams into the Sweet 16. Not going to be easy, but that's the whole point of it. You've got all these excellent teams out there that are looking to win just as much as Illinois. And then I think the only other question I had for you is, as you go out to these games this week for the men's team, is there a key player that you're looking for to see how Illinois will play, or do you think it's more of a team thing, or do you look at a certain guy and say, if he's right, we're okay?
I think that guard play wins. I think they need Trey White. When Trey White's good, it really helps Illinois. I think that the key, though, is going to be the 3 guards. It's Boswell, it's Riley, it's Yakachonis. And then also keeping Ivasic on the floor, but not in foul trouble. When he's in foul trouble, that hurts this team
Or
a
at least
lot.
make the fouls count. Not
he's really soft fouls. But I think if he's on the floor, and I don't even think he has to be like a locked in necessarily. He just has to be on the floor because it creates so many problems for the other team defensively. But I think the guard play will take them. If Yakachonis cuts down his turnovers, if Will Riley can handle the physicality. You've seen Will Riley in 2 games against Maryland. We're going to look at this game and say, oh, well, he had this many points. He had, in the first 37 minutes against Maryland that he played, he had 3, and he threw in a 3. That was it. They put in their subs, and he went wild because the physicality was tough for him. And I think it was an eye-opening experience for him to see the way that they were so strong defensively. But Yakachonis got to stop turning it over. I think Boswell has to play well, and the guards. If the guards play well, this team can play with anybody because they're going to get on the glass. They're going to have guys come off the bench, or whether it's Hummerkaus or Davis, who are going to come in and give you some minutes. They're going to have Merez is going to just pound the offensive glass and defensive glass. He's going to play his minutes. But I think the guards have to be good for this team to beat a high-level team. And if they turn it over 15, 16 times, they're probably going to lose. If they keep their turnovers down around in that 9 or 8 to 11 range, they have a really good chance of winning.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with that. Folks, we will be back this week. We will take a look at all these things going on. Of course, Brad will be going up to Milwaukee. We'll be there courtside covering it. I think Matt will be up there as well. So we'll have plenty of coverage there. And we, of course, will do our halftime lives. Marcus Griffin has been such a positive response that he's more than excited to come on, and if he's not at the game physically, he will be on the IlliniGuys halftime show. So we will have him on as well with Ked and myself. So we look forward to a lot of coverage here this week. Brad, any final thoughts?
Hey, we're only a week away from the beginning of Portal Combat too. So it never ends at IlliniGuys. The college basketball world never ends.
Yeah, and the Portal Combat is when, believe it or not, that's the number one time that we get new subscribers because people want to know what's going to happen and who's being looked at before it ever gets out. That's why we have Brad and Ked, and that's why people subscribe to us. So we are very excited about that. So with that, folks, we will break with a final commercial, and then we will be out of here. So thank you so much for giving us a few minutes of your evening here on a Sunday night.
This is the run my own business dream. This is the colleges paid for dream. This is the retire early dream. This is Busey, where your dreams and possibilities become moments through trusted guidance and expertise, through lifelong relationships. Because we're here to help you achieve the life you've always envisioned.